I'm trying for it. My lord.
Is the red light on?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk number 369. Yes, I don't know what that means. It just means there's no numerology there. We haven't got Mark here to tell us, but it sounds like a big number, and indeed it jolly well is, and almost as big as the number in terms of temperature as it is in the office at the moment. I don't know if you're aware, if you're not in the UK, but wherever you are in the world, you may be having similar sweltering hot conditions. In fact, Summer Nam was last week, and I think it was actually hotter here. And more humid, but only at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I suppose it's not quite perfect. But anyway, welcome to Sonic Talk. Remember, if you're interested in this, the first time perhaps you've seen it, you might want to subscribe to us on YouTube, because YouTube is where we post all of our video content, and there is a lot of it besides our fabulous Sonic Talk. Sonic Talk is brought to you by Isotope, and Isotope will in fact be announcing the winner of another competition this week. That's right, you can win Brake Tweaker. We have the draw from last week's show, so there will be a lucky recipient of Brake Tweaker, and you can win another one, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's get back to our guests, because that's what the show's all about. I'm going to start with Rich Hilton, because I haven't seen him for a while. Rich, how are you? Rich, of course, is Chic band member and also Nile Rodgers studio guy. You're looking very svelte, Rich. Have you had a haircut or you lost weight? I can't figure out which it is. Maybe both.
Oh, let's go with both.
Okay, great. It must be the summer. It's your summer look, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
How are you?
It's all an illusion. It's all done with mirrors.
Excellent. So you've been out on the road and what have you, right? You've been all over the place.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of back and forth going on in my life these days with continents. And it's not quite as continuous as the last 2 years, where we would go and hang out for 6 weeks in Europe and the UK and do all that. This tends to be more the down and back 2 and 3 gig run type stuff, and it's been going really well.
You're sounding
very well received.
Excellent. You're sounding very good here. I guess it's because it's the summer. We are in full swing summer, and Chic in the summer. It's disco party music love, right?
People do love this music right now. It's, thank goodness, it's unbelievable. There's just been a video posted of us playing the North Sea Jazz Festival in Rotterdam last week.
Cool.
In its entirety. So if you feel like dancing in your chair, have at it.
I might wait till it's a bit cooler. I'm too far away from the air conditioning unit, which is way over there at the moment. But because I'm using a dynamic mic, you probably can't hear that. Well, at least I hope not. Anyway, but Rich, of course, we always welcome you, and thank you for making time in your schedule. I'm sure you've probably got undergarments to wash or all of those things that you have to do between gigs. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. I enjoy it.
And we'll take a look. There looks. Oh, Dave Spears caught a bit of sun and everything. How's that possible? How are you, Dave? In your synth cave? Dave Spears, of course. I forgot to introduce you. I just said you'd caught the sun. Dave Spears, G4 Software, makers of fine software instruments, and collector of synthesizers. You can probably just about see. I think that's an Oberheim 8-voice top cabinet just behind his shoulders there.
Yep.
Good shot. I should know what it is by now, really, shouldn't I? I see it regularly enough. Anyway, how have you been, Dave? Are you well?
I'm all right, yeah. I shouldn't moan about the heat, but I will. No, I can't. It's just all the fans are just kind of going mental. And yesterday I had a day where the CS80 was on, the 8-voice was on, the JP8 was on, the Prophet 5 was on, the Pro 1 was on, the Modular was on, and it was just almost unbearable.
You need to get an air conditioning unit.
Yeah, maybe someday soon.
Anything broken down, though? Because, I mean, that's what's happening here. Because we've just recently refurbished our rack and kind of tidied up the cable and the power supply and created a few more spaces for it. And I switched it all on again today. And everything went wrong. And, you know, it was... First of all, the power supply went on this camera. Whenever I plugged the power supply in, the video signal wouldn't come. So I had to hunt around. That took a while to debug. Then I've been having a trouble with some sort of URL interception virus on the streaming PC, and I tried to clear that, and it got rid of my streaming software, so I had to reinstall that. Then when I booted up all the individual Skype accounts that you're on, it said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't sign you into Skype. You need to upgrade Skype first. We won't let you sign in." It's like, this is about 5 to 4. So, yeah, it's been one of those days. But I think it's going to hold for now, so I'm glad. Robbie Bronneman is there in Robot Studios, in between his festival gigs and all his other music composition, music production, and all the other kind of stuff. Working with Howard Jones on the road. How are you, Robbie? Any of your stuff broken down in the heat?
No, it's all been good. I've been in the studio the last few days, and it's just been, like you say, it's a bit. I mean, I've got air conditioning, but it's one of those ones you stick the thing out the window and it just sounds like a wind tunnel, and I just can't deal with it for too long.
That's what I've got here.
Yeah, you know, I can put it on for like 10 minutes and then kind of live with it for about an hour, and now to keep putting it on and off. So
it's tricky, isn't it? I don't know, because I'm beginning to realise decent quality air conditioning. I mean, the Americans are probably it's expensive, and the thing is, in the UK, most of the time, it's entirely the opposite. Like the gear keeps you warm rather than keeps you too hot. So it's a whole art. There must be a way. I'm trying to figure out a way, because we've got this portable one. I'd like to figure out a way that we can pipe a bit more into the other part of the office, because Andy's in there and it's really hot in there as well. So we've got one unit that's just sort of cooling this massive space, but only just because this. I'm sure I've moaned about this before because it was hot last week. That this is a flat roof up here, and the sun comes down on it all day, and then it just radiates down into the space, so it gets more and more hotter. Like.
Ow.
But it's great. It's summer. It's fantastic. It's
good.
It's good. The downside of it being summer, of course, is the news is rather thin on the ground. Everybody kind of goes, you know what? Let's wait until the autumn, or let's run up to Christmas. So there's much less around. So we'll be riffing it a little bit this week, but I'm sure nobody minds, because we got such golden greats as Mark Tinley's Crow story, if Dave was here for that one, which is awesome. Well, I'm going to have to ask Mark a bit more about that when he's on again next. You'll just have a teaser. That was Sonic Talk 367, I believe. Or maybe it was last week. I can't remember. I'm losing my mind. Anyway, well, let's start with the first topic, because I have one here. This is Klaus Schulze performing in Cologne in 1977. The first thing you notice about this is how very hippie it is. He's sitting on the floor on a rug. But what we've got here are mirrors overhead, which is so Jean-Michel Jarre. This is called For Barry Graves. I don't know who Barry Graves is. Sounds like... Look, there we go. As we pan out, there he is in front of his wall of modular stuff. It's an astonishing collection of Moog. There's some micro Moogs, there's a big system Moog, there's some EMS, there's an ARP Odyssey to his right, which is the white one. I think there's a Polymoog on the floor. You know, if I was his chiropractor, I'd say that's a really poor posture for playing any kind of music, because you're going to be bent down the whole time. He'd do his neck in. But here we go, and this is the whole concert is actually quite long. It's well worth watching, actually, if you can get. And it just struck me when I saw this, because I thought, as I said, I was sort of scrabbling around a bit for this week's topic. But I thought, I don't really know all that much about Klaus Schulze. I don't know that. I'm wondering whether I know that Dave Robinson, who's a sometimes guest on the show, is a really big fan of Tangerine Dream and knows about all of those guys. But I don't really have any inkling. Rich, you're looking kind of eager to perhaps put me right. Klaus Schulze, are you aware of this man's work?
Since the early 70s, I'm aware of this man's work. Although I have to admit he's sort of dropped off my radar by the, late 70s. But yeah, absolutely aware of his work.
So
enjoyed, by the way, very much enjoyed watching this clip, and I thought some of it was really, really good.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
I mean, it starts out very, very kind of dissonant and ambient and what have you, and then gradually we get into the sort of more sequenced, maybe more more recognizable kind of.
Well, the funniest thing about me and Klaus Schulze is the farther he is from diatonic harmony, the happier I am.
Okay. Wasn't he one of the pioneers of music concrete and tape and what have you as well? And hasn't he?
I'm not sure about the pioneers of that. No, he came 10, 15 years after the pioneers of that. But
a popularist, then, perhaps.
He was an early adopter of monophonic synths and using organs in tape delays and creating more ambient textures as a solo performer, and he was in that early genre of German School with Tangerine Dream and those people. I mean, it all appeared, at least in my life, around the same time. And like I said, I think a lot of what he does is very interesting, but most of it doesn't have to do with playing melody.
Right. Am I right in thinking that he also pioneered a method for scoring electronic music? I remember I've just got this memory of seeing these scores of his, which has this sort of very specific and quite unique way of writing it down. Or am I? Oh, that's Stockhausen, isn't it? God, that just shows you how broad my misunderstanding of German electronic music is. That was Stockhausen.
I wasn't aware of Klaus Schulze doing anything like that. No,
it's Stockhausen, isn't it? I'm really. If I could go any redder, which I can't because it's already so hot in here, you'd be seeing me having a real burn on there. Stockhausen. And Stockhausen, of course, also pioneered the music concrete. That shows you how little research I've done and how little I know about Klaus Schulze. Dave, help me out here. Do you know anything about him?
Not really. No. Other than the Tangerine Dream stuff. I'm sorry, I can't be a huge help. I did meet him a couple of times. He emailed us after we did Oddity. And then I met him at Frankfurt, one of the Frankfurt shows, and I've got a feeling he went on and did some stuff with, was that company Versin?
Versin. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Nice reverb they do.
And some. Do they do some vocal?
Yeah, funny
vocal
thing.
Vocal thing.
Yeah.
Tangerine Dream, again, I'm not really very au fait with Tangerine Dream, but what I did find was quite interesting is if you look at the dates, if you check out his Wikipedia entry, if you sort of bother to read any of it, which I haven't read very much, I checked the date, and it was their careers, his and Jean-Michel Jarre's, are almost completely parallel. And in fact, using many of the same instruments, and I wonder whether they sort of developed separately in a vacuum, or were one of those kind of groups of artists that kind of influence each other and kind of go, right, my album's going to have a bit. And I don't know about that, but I mean, Dave, you probably know a bit more about maybe that side of it, right? He said, hopefully.
Yeah, not really. I sort of flirted with a lot of those kind of mid-70s Tangerine Dream albums. I mean, but it was interesting because at the time I was looking for something, and I hate to use this word, a bit more, it's kind of exciting, whereas
dreamy.
And I do love it now. I do love that whole the sequencer, the whole modular sequencer vibe, and I've kind of fed off of that years later. But at the time, as a kind of youngster, I wanted something with a bit more aggression.
135.
And a bit less soporific, basically.
Yes, I think I know what you mean. There is Robbie, are you familiar with much of the Tangerine Dream stuff? I mean, again.
Well, I mean, one of my favourite bits of electronic music is the Tangerine Dream track. It's quite a late one. It's called "Love on a Real Train" from the Risky Business soundtrack. It's a great piece. Not also helped by the fact there's Tom Cruise getting it on with Rebecca De Mornay on a train, but that's irrelevant. That's nothing to do with it. It's actually to do with the actual music itself.
The combination of Wet Dreams, modular synthesizers, and Rebecca De Mornay.
And it's a good piece, "Love on a Real Train." I don't know a lot of their stuff. And the only thing I remember about Klaus Schulze is seeing over the years various articles. I remember seeing one about 10 years ago when he had like this massive wall behind him of like quasi MIDI stuff. He had like about 20 of these rack mount quasi MIDI things. I don't know if they were rack mount Ravens or something. I don't know. But I thought that's definitely not a good trade-in for the Moog, I don't think.
I wonder. Let's have a look. I'll see if I can find that picture of Klaus Schulze. There is. In fact, there's a 309 GrooveX rare Klaus Schulze limited edition for sale in London. But I do have, if I can play this. I mean, I wasn't busted last week. I'm going to try it again.
Try and play a little bit of this piece. That's great.
This is "Love on a Real Train." And there's the video. There's no Rebecca De Mornay in that. I'm glad to say I wouldn't want to be busted for any sort of improper broadcasting other than... So again, it's got that sort of pedal sostenuto kind of sequencer sort of stuff. Is that something that's kind of current through a lot of the Tangerine Klaus Schulze kind of thing?
Yeah, quite often. quite often. Nick, in the interest of historical accuracy, Klaus Schulze was the drummer in Tangerine Dream in 1969 and wasn't back when Edgar Froese was the guitar player. And he wasn't involved in any of the 70s era trio synth Tangerine Dream recordings.
Right. So he was more solo from then on. Okay.
Right. But actually, one of the most interesting things he did was appear in a band called Go that was put together by a Japanese percussionist named Stomu Yamashita, and included Steve Winwood, Al Di Meola, and various other luminaries, and was actually quite a interesting cross-cultural, cross-style kind of project.
I remember Stomu Yamashita. There were a couple of albums of his out, actually. I'm just seeing if I can find some recent pictures. It's that looks like a relatively recent picture of Mr. Schulze.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before. That picture.
That's quite a nice looking.
He's got those quasi-MIDI stuff behind him.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
He had like loads of them. He had like about literally. Yeah, that's his live rig. I remember seeing that. He had like about 16 of them.
And he's got a JP 8000 there.
It's a JD800.
JD800.
That's a JD800.
And a synth AKS, which is that's the synth I will get one day before it's too late. And what looks like a Korg MS2000 there.
Well, he was using an AKS in that video that we looked at.
Yeah.
To prepare for the show at some point.
That's a motley crew of stuff, isn't it?
It is. It's an interesting meld of digital and analog. I wonder how he got on, because I mean, interfacing all that stuff together must have been an absolute nightmare back in the day. Yeah,
absolutely. Those guys pushed rocks uphill.
I wonder I mean, you could imagine that maybe he was involved in some way in the designing aspect of the quasi-MIDI stuff, which is why he's maybe involved in the company. Because I mean, presumably, guys who are pioneering back then are undoubtedly going to be specifying or dreaming up pieces of equipment that they need for this all to kind of work together, and that's a great position to be in, right?
Nice to have a job.
Nice to have. Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff you kind of get asked what you like. I don't know. I mean, have you ever found that you've been in that situation where you've kind of thought, I need a piece of equipment that does this, and then somebody's built it, and you've gone, great, and then you've used it? Just to go. I'm going on a tangent because I can't think of anything else.
In my own life, it always appears about 25 years later. But yes.
Well, that's good, but far too late. That's how far ahead of the curve you are, Rich.
I've already found workarounds, 5 different times for 5 different pieces of equipment for it already, So it's cool that it does it like that now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, Dave, you've probably actually built stuff. I mean, because there was your, what was the name of the Fat Boy controller? I mean, that was a sort of, we need one of those, so you did it. Have you influenced any other kind of hardware manufacturer, do you think? Or no?
I don't know. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. No, I mean, most of our stuff comes from either working with an artist or two and then coming back and kind of going, oh, what really handy would have been one of those or something like this. Or, trying to keep something that's dying alive in another form, or trying to just introduce that kind of sound to another generation. I think that's the kind of main... Yeah, that's the kind of main thing. But I mean, the Fat Boy was really fascinating because actually that started. I'd done a set of MIDI files which were NRPN templates that you could dump into Cubase and layer over your chord or whatever you were doing. And then there was a kind of subsequent discussion of surely it's not rocket science to put it in a box with knobs on. There you go.
Look at that. Oh, and you did the templates thing, didn't you? You did the kind of overlays.
Yeah, I've got serial number 1 here somewhere. Found it the other day.
For you.
And we did a few little, special editions, blues and reds and stuff like that. And we were going to do a big deal with Emu. There was all sorts of things that were bubbling under.
So was I want to ask you, was Fat Boy in any way related to Mr. Slim? Or is it just happened to be the zeitgeist? The name of it?
No, but what was funny is Dale, my brother-in-law, was in Freak Power, which was obviously Norman Cook's band at the time. And there was a brilliant interview he did with, I think it might have been Future Music Magazine or something like that, where actually he used an a Roland SC88 Pro, which was the kind of, that and the SC55 was the sort of real idea behind, that's what gave us the idea. And he was there kind of holding it up in his studio with the 950 behind him and the whatnot. I spoke to him a couple of times about doing, you know, Fat Boy Slim, but obviously he didn't really want to do the whole gear haul route.
No, I suppose not.
Which is fair.
Fair enough. I know, Robbie. How about you? I mean, I'm suspecting, you know, because you kind of construct quite a lot of, and dream up things for making the live production of the stuff that you do with Howard Jones a reality. Has any of that kind of intuition and intuitiveness made its way into production?
No, I'm always coming up with harebrained ideas, and so's Howard and stuff. But the reality of it is you know, usually the costing involved in doing something relatively simple is just off the scale. I mean, like the other week we were saying, oh, let's get our Simmons pads, let's get them made in an opaque acrylic and have LED lighting fitted so they can light up every time you hit them. But like we looked into it, like just the molding, just to get a mold done, to mold some acrylic in that shape was just like £10,000 or something to machine it up to make 4 pads.
You need to you should buy a 3D printer.
Yeah.
That'd probably be...
I am amused by the chat room where it said isn't Dave responsible for the D-beam?
Yeah, it was named after me, Dave Beam.
The Dave Beam. Oh, that's what it is.
It was originally going to be the Beam, and
Whoever invented
we need
that
to make it more snappy.
They were going to call it the Light Spears. Oh, thank you very much.
Hey, I was going to call my daughter Broccoli, or if it was a boy, Shake.
I was apparently going to be called Acro. But I wasn't, fortunately. I remember when I first started out in programming. What happened there then? I seem to have lost my... I don't know. That's an interesting concept. There it is. There, I'm back. Yeah. When I first started out with Atari stuff, and I was using librarians, there was a guy making a program called Chameleon, which was a multi-pro, and I forget the name of the chap. He used to come to my little bedroom studio, and we used to sort of deliberate over the over bits and bobs and how to kind of create a librarian that was easy to use. And that was back in the day when you had to type everything in hex, you know. So it was. I had a bit of that, but I remember also I had an idea for a cable tester that would just test XLRs, jacks, MIDI leads, phantom power, all sorts of stuff, and put it in a little box. Kind of what like you can buy from Behringer or there's another company, Rolls or somebody like that. And this was years ago, and I happened to share my house with an electronics engineer, and he sort of went through it with me and told me how much it was going to cost just to prototype. And I just thought, oh, well, I spent ages. I've still got printouts of all my sort of endless ideas printed out on that sort of, on the Atari. I did it on the Atari with those, you know, the paper with the little holes down the side of it. I've got reams of the stuff. I wonder if I...
But that's exactly what I meant. 25 years later now, you can buy the thing for $100.
Yeah, I guess so. That's just the way it is. But anyway, Klaus Schulze. I'd try and bring it back, but I suppose there's not really... not really much more to say, but do check it out. And I'm sure I'm going to have to put some Tangerine Dream listening onto my listening jobs because I haven't actually really checked it out much.
They still tour, don't they?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, they should be on the bill with you guys. Surely there should be a sort of convergence somewhere there. Maybe you could get some of those members to join you with your 80s synth hook band.
Yeah. Oh, it's not restricted to 80s synth hooks. It's
just synth hooks generally.
From the ages, yeah.
What do you think would be your earliest hit?
I don't know. You're only talking to someone who's 39, so I don't know if I'd know. Someone else.
I'm trying to think what there might be. Dave, you're chuckling away there. I bet you know. What do you reckon the earliest pop hit? Is it going to be Popcorn? Or before that?
I was thinking of like Son of My Father or something like that.
Ah, yes, the Son of My Father. That's that's right. That sounded just like a stylophone, didn't it? That basically. Don't know what it was.
I'm going with "Here Comes the Sun" from Abbey Road.
Yeah.
I
do remember buying a single. My first single I ever bought was.
Okay.
First single I ever bought, Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. I'm the Urban Spaceman, because I was absolutely convinced that what turned out to be a kazoo was a synthesizer.
Oh, how disappointing. I think
years to find that out.
I think my first one was probably Depeche Mode, New Life or something like that. I just remember whatever their first singles were, you know, really cheap. Vince Clarke era. which could bring us on to another interesting concept and topic. But I think perhaps what I'll do first is introduce our sponsors. We'll do the sponsor thing. I don't know what the time is. I should have looked. Oh yeah, it's time for an ad. Let's do an ad now. So talk amongst yourselves for a moment, and I will introduce our advert. This is basically Isotope are letting us know about Brake Tweaker, which is a fantastic, it's not just a drum machine or a drum player, it's a drum sculpting and beat sequencing environment that blurs the line between rhythm and melody. Made in conjunction with BT, as you know, Brian Transo. It's got a collection of beat presets and samples, and it's easier than ever to add modern feel to compositions. You can have these sort of multiple crossing rhythms, granular synthesis. You can manipulate audio to a molecular level and reinvent any beat by controlling pitch, rhythm and texture at the finest resolution on the market, no less. And you can free yourself from traditional drum grids and create polyrhythmic beats with a unique iso rhythm. That was the term I was looking for. Basically, you really should check it out if you're into beats. And I know Robbie's a big fan of it, and you can use it for all sorts of stuff. You just need to go to isotope.com/breaktweaker, I believe, or just isotope.com. You can download a 10-day demo as with all of their stuff, and experiment with the presets, the drum samples, and just get in there and also load your own stuff up. And of course, we have a competition, because this week we're going to be giving away, I say we, I mean Isotope, of course, because I'm not giving away anything. I haven't got anything to give away. But we did last week, we did a competition with Isotope, which is becoming it is a weekly occurrence, frankly. So if you wanted to win it last week, you had to tweet the hashtag BreakTweaker to @SonicNick and @Isotope. You do need to do this on Twitter, so it's basically, I think it's worth joining if you haven't, even just to join a competition. You don't have to subscribe to anyone, you won't get spam or anything. It's actually quite a useful service as well for breaking headlines. But I'm talking about Isotope, aren't I? The winner from last week, who wins a copy of Brake Tweaker, is called Rabbahaud, and I'm not sure how I pronounce this. It's Rabbehaud. That's Rabhaud, I think is how you do it. But you can win this week as well, and what you have to do, let me just bring up the page. You can win it by tweeting the hashtag granular beats to @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc. If you join up Twitter, is kind of that'll mention it. Because we're mentioned in it, we can track the tweets, and also I'll do a search for that. So that means I just get a big list of people who've tweeted that, and then I pick a random number using a randomnumber.org and select the tweet that meets those criteria. So if you want to win a copy of Isotope Brake Tweaker, tweet the hashtag granular beats to @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc. So that's a word from our sponsor. We thank them very much for that. And if you're in the chat room, get in there quick. In fact, because it's a random number, it can happen. You can either be one of the later tweeters or earlier tweeters. I know As Your Head has been wishing to win for a long time. I'm going to see what we could do. I can't do anything about it. I wonder if Isotope might be able to make him an honorary winner or something. I can't promise anything, but I feel bad for you, As Your Head. I'm sure there are lots of other people out there who want to win too. Oh yes, this is the Brookside theme tune recreation. This is actually another interesting idea. So for those who don't know, Brookside is or was a long-running kind of soap set in where was it? It was Merseyside. Liverpool, that's right. And I was listening to this, and it just sounds so much... Let's just find my mouse. Oh, there it is. It sounds so much like Vangelis, John and Vangelis. They must have just sort of heard that and gone, oh, can we have that? And this has been recreated by a chap called KrypToneNZ. And he's taken the poster frame of the show and put all the bits in. I'd like to find out exactly what he did there, but he obviously put the whole... Yeah, this was back when Vangelis was really big, but it just made me think, actually, what theme tunes or classics would you recreate? Because I know, Dave, you sent me a link to a chap called Peahicks, who I think we featured on the show before, because he deals with Opticons, isn't he? He's kind of Opticon freak. Yeah. And he did a version of Yazoo's Only You using the Pro 1 and using actual original patch sheets and put it all together, and it was remarkably close, wasn't it?
Brilliant, utterly brilliant. And it's funny, I kind of put it on my Facebook thing, and ended up being quite a thread. I know P reasonably well, and he, yeah, it's kind of surprised me how accurate it was. And it was weird because I had, you know, as I put on my Facebook thing, I'm not a kind of ballad dude. So I'd sort of written it off then. I bought that album and thought Don't Go was amazing, but nothing else had kind of really grabbed me. But it was having it without the vocals suddenly made me kind of go, there's a real beauty in the simplicity of this. And, you know, there's little bits of orchestration and stuff like that. The sound is, you know, it's nothing amazing. Actually, when you put it all together, it's like, actually, this really works for me. So I was really happy to be able to kind of revisit it. What we're talking 30 years later and go, oh, actually, that was good. I was wrong.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because when, like you say, when you do listen to it, I think I've got a bit of it we can play here. Just the stuff with kind of like the counterpoint and what have you is actually very. It's almost classical in the way that he's putting things together. And as far as I know, I don't think he's got any training in that department. But I mean, it's, you know, it is very sort of naive. Let's see if I can find there's a bit where it all starts to. Mouse is hidden. All this little counterpoint and stuff. I mean, it is very. It's not dark. You couldn't say it was dark in any way or moody, but it does just work. So what? So Dave, while we've still got you, what would you like to have a go at? Because I mean, you've got plenty of synths there. So you know, what would you like to see redone?
Actually, it's funny because a few years ago, God, I can't even remember the name of the band. There was a band, a US band, who had done an album. I'll have to find the name. But they'd done an album and they'd used an Octagon. And their PR company had gone to like Radio 4 and went, okay, you know, we're going to do a little piece on this. Is it the Today Show or something like that in the morning? And they're going to do a piece on obsolete technology, Betamax videotapes, Octagons and stuff like that. And P said, oh, well, Dave's the guy to talk to in UK.
Right.
So Radio 4, and then obviously they condensed it down to the sort of 2 pretty banal minutes. But as part of it, he wanted me to compose some tune on the Octagon, and I chose the Archers, which I thought would be entertaining and very Radio 4.
Yeah.
So I did a kind of very soporific version of the Archers, which was hilarious because what I didn't realise at the time is that this is all syndicated. It's a local radio, and I think it was something like Radio Norwich played it, and then they had a competition to guess what the tune was, and it just went on like all day. So whoever this band was, Crash Test Dummies, that's who it was, whoever this band was, ended up getting shed loads of publicity from my incredibly weird version of the Archers, so much so that they had people phone in, say, you know, suggesting what it might be, and a few people got it right. And unbeknown to me, the minute I put my phone on the following morning at, you know, kind of 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm still in bed, the phone rings, and I'm on air with Radio Norwich, then thinking...
Alan Partridge.
already agreed to talk to me live on air. The thing is, like, and you're live on air, and so what we wanted to know, Dave, is what was that theme tune? At which point I had to say... it was the Dam Busters. I just thought I'd wind them up a bit. And there's this brilliant pregnant pause that goes out live, and the guy's like, no, you're not being serious, are you? And then, of course, they said that they couldn't get it, and then when I mentioned that it was the Archers, and he said, no, we couldn't get it, and I did suggest that perhaps that's why he was on local radio and not Radio 4.
Excellent. Yeah, nice that. Phone call first thing in the morning. Hey, you're live on radio.
And it was like, you've got 10 seconds. Are you ready? We're going to hand you over to the studio. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. And I'm not even had my first coffee. It was pretty funny. But if I had my time again, it would be EastEnders, because EastEnders for me is... We do the BBC 3 EastEnders, 10 o'clock at night, and that's mine and my missus' time to sit down and actually vegetate for half an hour.
So only because you want to play those Simmons toms.
Of course.
This is all very Rich. This is all very UK centric. If you theme tune you could recreate on a synthesizer, is there something you have a sneaking desire to recreate, just for your own pleasure, obviously? Or maybe Niall's got a planned covers album of famous TV resynthesized TV theme tunes, although I doubt it. Oh, I think you might be muted.
No.
I was muted, so my fault. I do beg your pardon.
and I often am. I've done a bunch of them, and some of them are commercially available. And one of them that I just pasted into the chat room was the remake of the Axel Foley theme for the movie Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
Also,
Be kind. It's a good, it's a living. It was 1994. And I've done that. I've done things that are less synth focused than that.
I'm going to have to bring this up, Rich. You understand that. Pasting the URL. Oh, yeah. There he is, Mr. Murphy.
As I said, 94.
Yeah, no, I mean, but those things are always very much of their time, aren't they? I mean, that's what the sound palette was of that time. So I could talk. Oh, where is Rich? So
I'm here. Yeah.
So you've done them. I remember we got asked to do a remix of Police Camera Action or something like that. One of the kind of one of those. I can't remember which one it was, and I didn't do it. I think it was at the Bill or something, which is in like 15.8 or something, so it wouldn't have really worked that way. Robbie, you must, as a sort of pop producer, you must be pitched sort of fairly regularly with harebrained remix ideas, or at least perhaps not so much now. It's not quite so much in vogue, is it? But
no, I have done in the past. But if I had to recreate a theme tune from the 80s, I'd do Airwolf.
Airwolf. Oh, I'm gonna have to find that now. Airwolf theme tune. Right. Is that William Shatner?
No.
Jan Michael Vincent.
There you go.
Hold on. Airwolf theme. Okay, I'm going to play this. Let's see. I'm guessing this is I guess, yeah, there might be a helicopter aspect to it. Awesome. That sounds like a sample cell French horn there, right there. Jesus. You couldn't do any worse. I'm pretty sure there, Robbie. I'm sure you could probably improve that. It's a very much. I wonder who did the theme tune to that. Actually, I didn't.
Didn't the Crazy Frog? He bastardized old Axel F, didn't he?
Oh yeah, that's right.
A couple of years ago.
Crazy Frog, of course. I'm actually not going to play that. Crazy Frog was. It was like a ringtone. It was the first ringtone hit, and it was a frog. And it was like ning 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 ning. I can't even bring myself to say it. It was but they made a fortune, didn't they? They did. Probably. Yeah. That would have been a project that I guess would have been quite nice to remain anonymous with, apart from the bank account details in which they could pay your royalties into. That would be an awesome.
Crockett's theme. That's another good one, isn't it? That would have been nice one. From Miami Vice.
Yeah, that's a tough one to do.
Yeah, is it?
Well, because Jan Hammer is such a virtuoso player that to cop that melody with anything like the finesse he had it at would be a major challenge in my view.
So he did that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jan Hammer.
He's a guitar master, isn't he?
Yeah, he recorded Jimi Hendrix songs on that with a 6-voice Oberheim system behind him.
I'd like to see that album cover. Anyone know what that album was called? Maybe we can give that one to the chat room for a bit of research. There you go. That's your homework for the afternoon.
I can get that for you.
Oh, okay.
I can get that for you in a second.
Excellent. Well, this is really rather a trip down memory lane, as it were.
But I mean,
the album was called Hammer.
You get yourself
the what? It was called what?
Hammer.
Hammer.
Here we go.
Stop hammer time.
Yeah, no, don't. Hold on a second.
There you go.
Let me see. I'm just going to try and find it. Jan Hammer. Yeah.
I just pasted it into the chat room.
Ah, okay.
What happened to Jan Hammer?
He's, I think, still living comfortably in upstate New York, but I'm not.
On royalties. Oh, look at that.
Oh, he had that crazy-looking guitar, didn't he? Weird thing.
The Probe, it was called.
Yeah, that's
the
Probe. Roger Powell worked on
developing how un-PC is that?
Yeah, the solo he plays is insane. He gets harmonic feedback and stuff like that. He's playing through Marshall amps.
Let's see if I can find it.
It's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Good Lord. Well, there we go. There's a whole lot of stuff for you to listen to now. Yeah, there was somebody in the chat room called YouTube Police. I hope that isn't really them, because that would be terrible. They didn't get us last week.
The law?
I'm on the run from the YouTube Police. They're not going to get me again. There must be another topic we can go to. Oh, yeah, Brookside. Oh, yeah, and that was Peahicks. Yes, this was an interesting one, actually. And this isn't meant to be a kind of, let's get at, but let me just see if I can find the story. I didn't have a link up for it. I think I just need to put this over here. This is, apparently this year, or certainly from now on, this is 40 years of Yamaha synthesizers.
Oh, yeah.
Which is astonishing, really. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, that's quite a heritage there, because I mean, they've done some amazing stuff. But I was really surprised to see that basically they're just going to, so far at least. I mean, there may be more, obviously, but so we got a new Motif XF limited edition with a different colour on it, which kind of, and the comments in the news story are not kind, but it does seem like a little bit thoughtless, perhaps, just to sort of use that and not perhaps come up with something, have a bit more planning in place to come up with something really special, as everybody else is. I mean, Roland are going with their new stuff. There's all sorts of other things in the pipeline. Novation celebrated 21 years with the Base Station 2. There's kind of, it just feels like a bit underwhelming, and I don't know, because there are some great Yamaha synths. I mean, Rich, you probably have played a bunch of them. Have you got any analog Yamaha synthesizers in your collection at this present time, or have had?
Nothing here now, but I've used a whole range of their stuff over the years. And I remember fondly the SY1 and SY2, which were their first two. One thing in particular about, I'm not sure about the one, but I know the two enabled you to run your finger back and forth on the key in order to play vibrato.
Yes, there was a sort of aftertouch type thing.
But it worked side to side.
Ah, it's like a rocking motion.
Yeah, and it actually vibratoed at the speed your hand was moving. It wasn't just kicking in an LFO at a fixed rate.
Wow, that's neat. Was that polyphonic as well?
No, no, it was a monophonic. It was a monophonic synth. I've used tons of their stuff, and I was deeply, imbued in FM gear at one point. Later on, I worked on an album with Eddie Jobson that was done almost entirely on a CS80, so I had quite a bit of exposure to that, although I didn't end up playing it very much. Used a CS50 and a CS60 in productions I did, played Yamaha organs from time to time, their electric pianos. I've got a whole folder on my Facebook page of Yamaha literature from back then. It's true.
Excellent.
It's true. You can actually, plunder the archives and see what the history of the whole thing is. But and then in more recent times, they've had other clever devices. I've never particularly loved using their DAWs. Somehow, architecturally, they don't run intuitive with me. But they all work great, can do everything you need them to do.
The workstation.
And I know,
right.
Yeah, and I know tons of people who use them, love them, and get magnificent results. So it's purely a personal taste issue for me.
Exactly. I mean, they're massive in the States. I mean, the Motif workstations, that whole kind of being on TV, being on stage and playing a Motif, and also the really big in R&B and in the church kind of community is massive, which I guess is why the Motif range is so strong, right?
And this white one is going to be very popular in the R&B world. I think they will sell them there because it'll look really cool and distinctive on stage. And those guys use this thing quite a bit. And friends of mine do. People I've played with on stage do. It's a really great product. It makes great sounds. It's got tons of them. And once you learn to get around the thing, it's really, really versatile and quick.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think to some degree they kind of suffered from having too much in there too early, because I mean the Mox range and the Mox F that we've just done, the synth engine in it is mind blowing. Up to 8 oscillators. I mean, and that is like really extensive. It's just, I guess that all came in. They innovated early within the range, and now we're not really getting the benefit of any new stuff, and it just feels like maybe perception is behind the curve rather than the actuality. Dave, have you got any Yamaha synths in your collection? Well, you know you got the CS80, haven't you? But anything else?
The CS30, which is a great machine.
They're great, yeah.
Kind of amazing modulation routings, and the fact that you can bring in oscillator VCO1 back in and anyway, there's all sorts of mad. In fact, when I looked at it, first of all, I was like, the designer of this synth must have been a lunatic, because it is quite mental. A lot of it is quite mental, but it's a beautiful thing. Same VCOs as the 80. We've got a 60 and 80. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've got. Oh, I've got a. Oh no, that's not. I did stuff on. I did some styles and stuff. I think for the. Was it the RM1X and stuff like that? But
yeah,
for me, the last proper Yamaha synth of any interest to me was probably the FS1R. That was it. After that, I don't know. It just kind of got all very homogenized, and I've no interest in this white thing whatsoever. I'm sure it'd do great for them, but it's not something I'd even look at. Yeah,
it's funny though. Isn't it? I've got a. Oops, that's the wrong camera. I've got a 15 here. Oh, which sounds like it's got a loose screw in it, which has got that rattling around in there, which has got that kind of dual filter that you can do the. What is it? The dual mode filter. So you've got a high pass and a band pass or something, and you can get that. You can do the Blade Runner thing, which is always a good test of any synthesizer. So you can do that. Robbie, you got any Yamaha stuff?
I haven't, but I remember back in the day when after I got my Casio MT68, my next little visit to Dixon's was to buy a Yamaha CSO1.
Yeah,
you know, the little monophonic analog synth.
Beautiful synth.
Oh, and I, you know, and years later, I left it at somebody's house.
Well, they're so small, you could practically leave it down the back of the sofa, was it?
And they're like going for like 400 quid now, and I had such a great pulse width sound on it. And I had the little drum machine that went with it. There was like a tiny little drum machine on the CSO1 and a little mini mixer as well.
Wow. Yes, I remember that little range, and it went with the Yamaha MTX 4-track as well, didn't it? It was all in the same livery.
Yeah, that's right. It was great, and I haven't had much Yamaha over the years. I mean, I had a DX. Funny thing was, I remember as a kid, when I was about 11, when all those DX things came out, and I used to lust after the catalogues, you know. I used to write letters to Yamaha. I used to get very industrious and make these gear suggestions. And I remember going, what I would like is one of these RX11 drum machines and a DX7 and a sequencer, all in this one unit. And I used to send them little pictures of things I'd like spliced together. So I like to think I was responsible for the workstation.
Workstation. You know that, the workstation? My idea. That was my idea. I hope you sent those letters registered. Did you send them registered post? Because you might have a case there, Robbie.
I don't know, but I never suggested speakers.
No, I know how you feel about speakers in a.
Yes, one did have his little speaker, so you know, fair enough.
Ah, that's true.
Yeah.
Some great. Actually, the other one that was really useful, and I know this is probably not all that fat, and I might have talked about it before, was the DJX range. I don't know if you remember those. That I've got that in the box somewhere. It was like a little kind of. It was just full of like 8-bit samples of scratching and stuff, but it had tons and tons and tons of drum sounds in it. And I remember they were really crunchy, and you could filter them and EQ them, and it had all this sort of real-time performance stuff. And they were actually quite usable. I remember I sampled all of them and put them in ESX instruments, and then used them on the first or second Girlfrap album all over it. There's tons of them everywhere, and they just because they're quite unusual sounding. You know, they just got a certain something about them. But and I suppose the chat room says Tenorion was fun. I suppose that's pretty innovative for its time as well. Although it was one of those things that was like a solution looking for a problem, but. Still, you know, I mean, you got Launchpad. It influenced that whole kind of moving to the grid, and it was a really big deal for Yamaha. I mean, would it be fair to say that was probably the last really big technology innovation in terms of instruments from Yamaha? I mean, not in terms of voicing, perhaps, but certainly in UI. Oh, Rich, you're looking puzzled.
Yeah, maybe so. I'm thinking maybe so. I can't think of one.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And I know that it just feels like
That's pretty big, though. I mean, that's a very interesting interface. I know a lot of people who were really excited about it when it came out. I don't know a lot of people who did a lot of work with it that ended up.
Did you?
Yeah, I had one of the first, you know, the proper aluminium Tenorions. I did a lot of stuff with it. I've connected it up and did all sorts of sort of Reiki and kind of ambient stuff with it. I loved it.
It
was just a little bit. It was like you say, like an instrument. They thought, sod it, we'll just make an instrument that's totally quality, you know, and we'll make it out of lovely milled aluminium, and we'll do it all properly.
Yeah.
It was slightly flawed, but I mean, it wasn't. I remember going to the launch in London. I was very excited by it at the time.
It's interesting, isn't it? That I think, if I remember correctly, they were just sort of stuffed by the introduction of the iPad, weren't they? Really, because I think the Tenorion came out, and then didn't iPad come out the same year? And music apps, as we know, kind of made quite a big inroads into that. And I think the Tenorion ended up being more expensive than an iPad. So I may be wrong, but I think that's what kind of did for them a little bit on that. I mean, it was never going to be a mass consumption instrument, of course, but I don't think it helped, perhaps. But
they brought out the second one, didn't they, which was white, but the flaw of the second one was it only had the LEDs on one side. So, you know, you had artists like Little Boots who were using the Tenorion, and it was a real visual thing on stage because you could see all the lights from the back. Yeah. But the white one was just like, it was like you're doing your emails again.
Yeah, I suppose the thing about that is probably they were trying to cut the cost down, weren't they? Because, I mean, that sort of thing adds. What was that? It was more than 64, wasn't it? Was it 128 buttons?
Yeah.
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 I think it was 16 by 16, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
It was, yeah. That's what. Is that 128? Hold on, I didn't mean maths. Yes, something like that, isn't it? I pass. Anybody? So what do you think? What do you think would be an advisable move for a company in Yamaha's position to kind of bring out? I mean, because there's this temptation, isn't there, to kind of go into legacy territory and go, right, let's reissue, you know, something along the lines of the CS80, something with the spirit of it, and it's very hard to get that kind of thing right. But I mean, what if you were being asked to advise them? What do you think? What would you suggest? Anyone care to go first there? I can leave your name blanked out if you don't feel. I mean, any company, I suppose, Dave. I mean, if you've got to kind of think about your parts. I mean, this is the thing that Roland have just done, and you know, it's difficult. Of course, you're going to get flack for a certain amount of things. It's got to be a very difficult thing to do that. I mean, but what do you think would work for something like Yamaha? You know, are we cocooned in our little bubble of analog? And really, if they made, like, I don't know, let's say a polysynth, would it actually sell anyway, or would everybody? But I mean, there's all that kind of. It's the notion of the, what do they call it? The is it the oh gosh, when you produce one thing that kind of drips down to the rest of the brand. I forgot what it's called. It's like a totem or a flagpole or something like
Flagship.
that. Flagship, sort of, yeah. What do you think? What do you think would be a good?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because actually, I don't think it matters. You know, if they decided they were going to reissue the CS80, there'd always be like a whole load of people going, but it's not going to be anything like the original, and blah blah blah. And I think the Roland stuff is starting to kind of change that view a little bit. I think people are just kind of going, and also prices. You know, a decent CS80 in the UK, you're looking at, you know, at least 10,000 upwards. So I think, yeah, I don't know. There's always, I don't know. It's just weird. There's always people who will moan and moan and moan that nothing is like the original thing. Even if you've got 6 of exactly the same thing in front of you, they'll always find, oh, that one's the best one, or somebody else will think that one's the best one. And I don't know. I think you're kind of stuck between a rock and hard place 99% of times, because you're just always going to get grief. So whilst I'd love to see them do something that paid homage to the parts, and I really do like the little SY 1s and 2s. The SY 2 was the only other synth apart from the 2500 that was on Close Encounters. A bit of trivia there.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
The iMonster guys use that a lot, and I did really sort of fall in love with that one when we started playing it. It's really simple. One of my favourite little synths is the little Art Pro Soloist, because it's just simple and it's just got a great sound. So I'd love to see a company do something really nice and simple. And it's weird because most of the kind of highbrow, high-profile musos that I speak to, that's what they love. They just like something really simple that makes a great sound, that doesn't take too much of their time away. So, you know, maybe redoing a CS80 isn't the right thing to do. Maybe just kind of do something nice and simple and just sounds good, really good.
Yeah.
Do you think they're interested in it, though? Do you think they're really interested, a company like Yamaha? I mean,
No,
what do you think synths really equates for a company like that? I mean, they make so many other musical instruments that are probably so much more mass market. It's really probably low on their priority list to do.
Yeah, I mean, they probably sell more silent trumpets than they do synthesizers, don't they?
So it's like, you just wonder whether, I don't really view them like a synthesizer company anymore at all.
No.
I haven't done for a long time.
But I mean, there's so many directions. I mean, you know, they've got a couple of directions they can go in, haven't they? I mean, they've got the AWM2 engine, which is actually really, really powerful. And to be fair, in terms of what they could get out of it, they could probably rewrap that and represent it in a way that was made it more immediate and a lower cost, that did, you know, because there's all sorts of filter mod. I mean, there's an incredible amount of power in it, but then there's also got this massive legacy of FM, which, I mean, I'm sure there must be a boff in there somewhere who could come up with a more knob twiddly kind of hands-on way of working with FM. I don't know, because that seems to be a challenge that nobody's managed to kind of rise to just yet, and yet the range of sounds you can get from FM is enormous. I mean, admittedly, a lot of the ones in between are completely unlistenable and useless, but there must be a way of designing interface or algorithms that enable the user to kind of move between sounds. It just seems like there's got to be something there with that legacy, and that presumably FM. I mean, FM was in the DX7. Presumably that was DSP, wasn't it? I don't know whether it was or not. I hadn't really thought about it.
Sorry, Mitch, I'm trying to find you a link.
Ah, okay.
I'm not sure,
Sorry.
But Native Instruments has done very, very good emulations of Yamaha FM World.
You can load the
with. Pardon me, Robbie?
You can even load all your old FM libraries directly into it. So
yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
I'm just
and
going to
there's so much in there. You can just sit there and browse for days and tweak. They have a couple of tweakable controls on each of their thing at the top level before you have to dig. And when I want FM, I find I have no trouble getting it from there.
I suppose that's the thing. Maybe I haven't discovered it because FM was one of the first, one of the reasons why we ended up with kind of banks and banks and banks of patches, because nobody could program them apart from a very small number of people effectively. You know, I mean, it was hard to work on in terms of sounds, right? I mean, there were librarians and what have you, so maybe so.
Didn't somebody once make a big controller which was almost the size of a DX7, which had loads of knobs on doing?
DX7 editor, yeah, hardware. I think I do remember. It's a great rarity, isn't it? Was it a German company?
Yes, it was. I can't remember who it was now. I've just sent you a link to the greatest ever CS01 solo ever. It's a guy, Jean-Philippe Reichel.
Ah, okay, all right.
Who is absolutely stunning. If you don't do it now, do it in the show notes.
Where have you sent it? Sorry, because I'm not monitoring this.
I've sent it on Talk 4.
Ah, right, okay. I'm not going to get that because it's... Ah,
okay.
It's not... I'm not connected to those, if you see what I mean. You're just disembodied heads on... Incidentally, Rich, this is probably your first time of the multi-view. Do you find this more... I've spoke to this before, but is this more of an interactive experience? Because you can see what everybody's doing rather than just yourself when you're talking, I suppose.
It's a combination of a more interactive experience and a more self-conscious experience. A delicate balance between those two things.
Okay, I got you. Well, I still stuff to do. I'm just seeing if I've got. If you email it to me, Dave, then I can maybe
I'm
play that.
It to you
DX7.
now.
Hold on, DX7 programmer. Here we go. This is Pop in the chat room, very kindly.
Oh, Jellinghouse, that's it.
Yes.
Oh, look at this. Hold on. So presumably this was all done with... Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's it. That's the beast.
Wow.
I never...
Let's just get that as... Jesus Christ.
It was like massive.
That is hilarious. I mean, that's just so vast, isn't it?
It's bigger than the actual synth. I didn't really remember that. It makes it like a sort of a modular, doesn't it?
It does. Like... That is just fantastic. Wow. What? I wonder if it made it actually any more intuitive to edit, because I mean I can't see what any of those say, and I presume, and this was the thing when my very limited experience of editing any sort of FM stuff is it's so far away from any experience I've got of analog synthesis, apart from when you get into the envelopes, that the tonality and stuff is so hit and miss. I mean, I know nothing about it whatsoever. Dave, aren't you tempted to get stuck into a bit of FM? Solid bass, log drum.
Yeah, I mean, I did
all those classic patches.
Yeah, Jim, I did do quite a bit of FM stuff back in the day, but it was a bit of a headache. I mean, it's actually not that difficult once you get your head around it. But it's things like the way the operators are stacked to create those algorithms. That was the kind of, once you got the rest of it, that was the bit that would always throw you, because you kind of get so far and then you tweak that and it just like throw everything into mad mode.
Are you playing some FM synth? FM?
Yeah, no, there's a great little sort of FM engine on the OP1. You can get all sorts of crazy stuff out of it.
Well, there you go. There's a good reason.
Four knobs to change. What can possibly go wrong?
That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. You see, that's what we need is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I still use FM in productions when I want something that presents differently in the mid-range than something analog or something traditional. And quite often I'll distort it and process it in some way. And you get very different results in the way it presents mid-range than you do using almost any kind of analog or simulated analog source.
Oh, really? So, how would you? What would you just? What kind of purpose? You know, what kind of sound would that be? Would that be a polyphonic sound, or I mean, what?
Yeah, it could be a polyphonic sound. It could be a melodic sound. You know, monophonic melodic sound. But quite often, like I say, I'll take some source and distort it to some extent because of the way the mid-range hits the distortion. It kind of accentuates that quality, which makes it different from all that other stuff you've got laying around in your track. And it allows you to make it stick out in a cool way without making it loud.
Ah, and you use FM8 for that? Is that where you go for that?
These days, yeah. But I used to use FM7, and I'll use, whatever. But the FM method of that Yamaha FM presentation, like I said, has a very unique signature in the mid-range. It also does certain other things like bell, clangorous stuff, and sharp attack stuff, percussive attack stuff. There are certain things it does particularly well. And when I need any of those things, I try to use it.
Ah, well, of course, who can forget electric piano or the jazz guitar?
Yeah. But it's actually nowadays it's the not so secret weapon of pretty much all the dubstep producers. FM8 is like one of the main synths everybody uses.
Oh, right, for sort of subtones or just
all sorts of crazy sort of warped out basses and things. It's we've done some work with a guy called AU5, and he does some amazing work using the FM8.
Programming his own stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, like really, really phenomenal sounds. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh,
so even the young kids are into it now.
Even the kids. Hold on. Oh, wait a minute. I need to get onto YouTube here. I can see that here's a CSO1.
It's the best solo ever.
Let's find that. Let's just have a quick. Oh, he's got the breath controller as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
That sounds very much like that Wally Badarou sound of from the Grace Jones period. You know, the Island Life stuff. Oh yeah, articulate. Oh yeah, that's nice. I could get lost there. Maybe I'll play out with that, and then then we can really get busted. Yeah, was that Paul Midden and Richard Bonnard, Douala Project, State of Mind? Oh no, I've got what's happened here? I've lost me.
He's a guy, Jean-Philippe Reichel, is a French guy. He's blind.
I was going to say he looked like he might be blind, but I didn't. I wasn't sure because he wasn't looking at his hands, and I thought, God, that's articulate. Really good.
That was a CSO1 Mark 1, wasn't it? Because the O2 had the full resonance slider and a different 24 dB filter, wasn't it?
Get in, Robbie.
And was black.
Yeah. Or was the other way around?
Oh, Dave, I think you were out-synthed there, I have to say.
No. That was the grey was the 12 dB filter and the black was the 24 dB filter.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good work. Oh, that's just awesome. Awesome. I'm very pleased for you both. That deserves some kind of T-shirt. But the CSO1, yeah, we talked about breath controllers before, haven't there? And there's just definitely a certain something. In fact, we've got an interview which we haven't published yet, actually, with Will Gregory and the Moog Orchestra, and two of the players are playing WX1, the wee EV. I don't know what they're called. They're basically saxophone fingering, and you can play, and the expression is amazing on those things. Really, really amazing.
Howard's really great with the breath controller with his VL1. I mean, that was a good synth. That was quite an interesting synth when it came out. But he can do some great stuff with that. He just says he always feels a right idiot doing it.
I think there's an aspect of if you play a lot with it. I've just got this image of all the because when you use any kind of mouthpiece thing, there's a lot of spittle involved, and it has to go somewhere. And I've just got this notion of this sort of CSO1 having to be sort of emptied out with the brass valve at the end of the gig. That's why they're battery powered, right? So there's no lasting damage to anybody, or perhaps not. There was something else here. There's another topic. Ah, yes, the Ploytech. Now this was kind of interesting. I've got this. Where is it? It's not there. Blimey, I'm really I've got too many windows open. Everything's going wrong. Here we go. This is the this was actually I was posted as a Summer NAMM story, which probably is not what they deserve. But this is the little Ploytech M something squared. I don't know what it's called. It's got a new firmware update that allows it to do vocal formants. I think I should be able to play a bit of this. Let's have a listen, see if it will. This is a track made specifically. This thing's made with the Ploytech, and I know it's very sort of glitchy and very sort of bit tunes or what have you. This thing's €77 and is MIDI powered. We've talked about it before. There we go. What I'm amazed about more than anything else is this tiny little €77 thing is getting firmware updates, and it's sort of continually being developed. I just think that's absolutely awesome in many ways, and I think this. You've got one, haven't you, Robbie? Because didn't you do? Yeah. You did some tracks with it.
Yeah, we did a Sushi Friday track specially for them using it, where all the sounds were from it. It's a fun little thing.
Are you officially a Ploytech endorsed artist then?
Well, I guess so. Yeah, I mean you can get some really good sort of SID that kind of chip tone kind of sounds out of it. Some really gnarly stuff. But the editor's just a little bit. Well, I think they've got a new editor coming. The original editor was a little bit kind of PC looking. It was a little bit hard to look at it for any period of time. But it's a fun little synth.
Here we go. There's a shot of that. Looks like. Is that the editor?
That's not what it was when we used it a couple of months back. So
that looks a bit.
That looks much better.
It's 2 oscillators, 7 waveforms, 32 presets, 32 user presets. Fantastic little thing. It was just like
a white thing with text when we used it.
That's not what you want, is it? Yeah, I know how you are with you don't want to be spending hours doing user banks for Ploytech. Funny little thing, though. I mean, I like the idea of it, and the fact that it takes its power from MIDI is somehow astonishing. I don't know how on earth they managed to engineer that, but
it's a shame that the control you've got USB on it as well, but you can't control. You can't use the USB to do the MIDI connection. So you've got to have the MIDI connection, and you've got to have like a little phono output, and you've got to have the USB.
Right.
All 3 connections to it to do the job.
So it's not quite as elegant as I suppose once you've got the patches, though, you can then just play it on the end of a MIDI cable, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well, that's something. Yeah. Kind of fun.
Yeah.
And at the other end of the scale, I think, Dave, you found this one. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I put it... was it there? Hold on a second. This was the... oh, no. I'm just trying to... Now I'm lost. This is what comes when you don't do enough prep, which is I'm clearly guilty of. Oh, and I haven't even switched to my own camera. Let me have a look here. Wait, there's a... where is it? This is the Fairchild that's on eBay in the UK. It's just mind-blowing, isn't it? It's
20
really...
grand. That's stupid, isn't it?
Here we go. Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I had it, but I must have shut the window. This is the... for those of you who haven't seen, the Fairchild used to be the sort of holy grail of compressors. And, for the sort of 50s sound. It's that kind of classic sound of I guess, the Sinatra era and onwards. And I remember there was a studio in Bath that had one. This is the stereo one. It's got a great sound. And I know this one is, if we just shut this one is currently accepting offers in the region of 30,000 quid, which I'm guessing at current prices is about, what would that be in dollars? About $55,000, something like that.
Yeah. So about 25 Universal Audio quad cards or something, octo cards.
Yeah, and versions of the plugin. In fact, we did a review. Well, we didn't. Tosh, one of our reviewers, did a review of the Fairchild Limited collection, and it sounded bloody great because they brought this new version out. Because there's always been one on the UAD platform. There's a new one out which is they've expended extra DSP on emulating the actual sort of power supply aspect and the transformers. You know, they've really gone to town on it. Rich, you were saying that. Have you used that?
Yes, and it's actually even further than that. They've gone beyond the controls accessible to the user on the original to actually build on the thing as a concept, as people have also done with some of the Ploytech emulations now. And yeah, it sounds pretty darn magnificent, that thing. That's a pretty great plugin.
Yeah, and frankly, on a day like today, if we had one of those in here, the temperature would be about sort of 10 degrees higher because they are massive with enormous power supplies. I wonder if there's a picture of the insides of it. Oh, yeah, here we go. Look, this is just mind-blowing. So that's, yeah, we're talking these kind of chunks of huge chunks of kind of valves.
Do you notice where that was made?
This one?
Yeah, on that plate. Long Island City, New York. Long Island.
Oh, cool.
And Fairchild used to also do production out in Farmingdale, Long Island, which is right near where I grew up and was born, and used to do military aircraft projects as well. It was a huge employer on Long Island. And yeah, this stuff, that's where this stuff is from. I know it's all well known because it was used at Abbey Road, et cetera, but the fact is, it was designed in the U.S. and made in New York. Its
original purpose was to, because when they were cutting vinyl, I mean, cutting the acetates as well, because they used to, you know, any overs were seriously problematic, and you could do damage to the cutting heads and all sorts of things. So this was the last thing in the chain, as far as I recall, before it hit the vinyl, so that you couldn't break it. And they've got that brilliant thing. And as far as I know, I mean, this must have been the first instance where you can take the mid and the sides and treat them differently, so you can bring things wider, and which is really advanced. I don't know if that's a mod or what, but that's fantastic stuff. It really does sound good. Do you get to use what you use that? Have you used the real thing? Hot to the touch, I'd imagine.
I've been in a room where the real thing was being used, but it wasn't me operating it.
It brings to to mind that fabulous phrase "waxing a hottie," as you say when you're. It's an old-fashioned way of making a tune. I wonder who said that first. It must have been. It sounds like somebody like Spike Lee or somebody like that. You know, perhaps might have said it.
And every time you say that, it takes me straight to the tanning salon.
Or there's that. In fact, I wonder if there's there should be a tanning salon in Bath called Waxing a Hottie. Perhaps there will be. There you go. You can have that for nothing if you're watching this. If you're just a random YouTube watcher who happens to stumble upon this, you've made it this far into the show, which I know is unlikely.
True.
You can and you happen to be thinking about opening a tanning salon, you can have Waxing a Hottie on me. Right, I think that's probably it for this week. So thanks ever so much for everybody. I know it's been hot. Well, I don't know where is it hot where you are, Rich, or is it still fairly temperate?
No, this is we are now in the dog days of summer, and it is hot and quite often humid. And I think there's a line of thunderstorms coming through later today, which we could sort of desperately use now after a few days of building heat and humidity. But it's summertime. Good. That's what we expect.
Well, good luck with that, and good luck with whatever it is you're on to next. No doubt, globe-trotting or waxing hotties. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure you'll be equally adept at both of them.
Thank you.
And also, we'll say thank you very much to Dave Spears for joining us as well. Thank you, and thank you for your extra links to pep up the show. I think I might play out with a bit of that Yazoo from Peahicks. No, it wasn't Yazoo. Yes, it was. It is.
No, the other one. I don't do either one. But that solo is pretty monstrous. Put the link.
Oh, yes, I'll do the solo. That's it. Oh, I might have shut it now.
And if anybody's feeling like lending me some money for that Fairchild, I'll be starting a Kickstarter campaign.
A Kickstarter
called the Grovel Star campaign.
Kickstarter, buy me a Fairchild. You don't want it in there though, Dave, because it'll just be too hot. Then you'll have to be, the next Kickstarter will be I really need an air conditioning unit. And then the next one will be I really need some help with the electricity bills to pay for my Fairchild and my electricity.
I really need to fix all these synths that are broken down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the heat.
That's
but
right.
hey, look on the bright side. It might be 20 grand, but at least Apple ain't going to come along and screw it up.
30 grand.
30 grand.
Yeah. Hey, do you think it'll have a lightning connector for that sort of money?
Oh no, let's not go there. Oh.
Okay, let's not.
Here for that, don't we?
Yeah. Anyway, Robbie as well. Thank you for joining us, and I hope now you can turn your air conditioning on and cool down a bit, and carry on mixing in your vest or whatever your chosen attire is. Well, I don't know. It just seems
I've never worn a vest in my life.
I mean, well, now you should start. Your mixes may change for the better.
Well,
you never know.
String vest.
Yeah,
like
perhaps.
a wife beater, as they call it, don't they?
Yeah.
Those classic look.
That's right. Anyway, Robbie, there in Robot Studios as well. Thank you very much, and we'll be back next time for another show. In the meantime, I'm going to play out with a bit more of this chap playing the CS01 in a beautiful style. So thank you very much, everybody. That's it for this week, and thank you to the chat room. Oh, I nearly forgot. No, I'm not going to say goodbye yet because I just want to reinforce the competition. So yes, the competition, of course. Win Isotope Brake Tweaker. Tweet the hashtag Granular Beats to @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc. and we will pick a new winner for next week. In fact, and if you didn't hear it, the winner for last week is called Rabbahaud, Rabbehaud. And if anyone knows him, get him to get in touch, and we'll get the Isotope Fairy to bestow her gifts upon him. Right. And anyway, here we go. Let's carry on with the play out. Oh, it's gone all funky now.